Hello and welcome to the Pro Football Network Miami Dolphins Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Infante, joined once again by Adam H. Beasley, who is back from the scene of the crime in Baltimore. I know how it was for me watching it unfold. You were there. What were your thoughts watching how that game went from, the Dolphins playing well, competing hard, they're right there, and then the wheels came off in a hurry?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how fast it happened. It was, I guess, 14-13 midway through the second quarter. That Tyreek drop, I think, was a big play early in the game, but you wonder how much of a difference it would have made in a 36-point loss. Regardless, that didn't help. And then just three straight possessions, boom, 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 two to end the first half and one to open the second half. I mean, you saw Hard Knocks last night. They were, trying to regroup at the half and then give up a 70-some-odd yard kickoff return the very next play to start the second half, and it was game over from there. Crazy. It's crazy that nothing they could do could stop it. They could do nothing on offense. They could do nothing on defense. They could do nothing on special teams. It was a collective failure all at once in a way that we kind of certainly haven't seen since the Buffalo game, and really haven't seen at all this year. The fact that everything stopped working at the same time, can't explain it. The Dolphins have to hope it's a one-off. Part of me wonders if it's, an elite team doing what an elite team does to non-elite teams and absolutely thrash them. I mean, look, the Ravens, without question, are the best team in the National Football League. Right now, they have the best record in the National Football League. They have the number one seed. They've beaten two of the other five teams that could have a claim for being the best team in the National Football League, and they beat them by a combined 60 points. Is that what it was? I mean, something absolutely insane what they've done to the Niners and Dolphins. And they had a late game, right? They played Monday night, didn't they?
They played Monday night in San Francisco.
So they had the shortest of short weeks. They got home probably dawn on Tuesday. And 5 days later, played about as good as I've ever seen anyone play against a Mike McDaniel team. It was just an absolute ass kicking.
Yeah, you mentioned the Buffalo game. It kind of felt like that from a game script where, initially, right, the teams are going back and forth, score for score, and then one possession, they throw the interception, and then Baltimore scores, and then now they're chasing. And it felt like after the game, I think it was Tua who said something along the lines of pressing, and that's what they did in the Buffalo game as well, back in early October. And it just felt like once they started falling behind and maybe started feeling that the defense wasn't going to get many stops, the offense started pressing the issue more, and then you found yourselves in these bad interceptions, and there were some missed opportunities, right? The Claypool drop, which the game might have been out of hand by then anyway. You mentioned the Tyreek one. It was hard to watch. It wasn't entirely unexpected. Now, I know I debated this last show with David Behrman about kind of what might happen, what might transpire, talking about the history of being in Baltimore, and outside of a historic fourth quarter last year. This is kind of how it's been in Baltimore for Miami. So wasn't a huge surprise from that end. I don't know if it's foreshadowing what's to come because this team is a different team at home. And I think that, is something we have to, kind of keep in mind here. But a lot of the issues we saw the Baltimore kind of attack, they're going to face the same thing just at Hard Rock Stadium against the Bills, right? They're going to attack the cornerback depth because you're not going to have Xavier Howard probably. They're going to attack, which the Bills have always done, attacking the inside linebackers who are trying to cover. Duke Riley was a victim a lot in that game, and it wasn't much better when Jerome Baker was there as well, as far as covering the running backs out of the backfield. So, how concerned would you be based on what you saw in Baltimore, what you know about Buffalo heading into this very important Sunday night game?
I mean, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence if that's what you're asking. Do I feel like, hey, they're fine? No. I mean, let's just take 90 seconds and address the elephant in the room. Mike McDaniel crushed their pass rush for the rest of the season by a decision he made. And that to me was the biggest loss of the entire game. X is going to be back at some point. Maybe it might be a wild card round. Maybe it's a divisional round. He's not going to play this week, obviously. But they now, in the span of a month and a half, have lost Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. And, I'll have to go and look at the play-by-play, but I don't think Phillips was when the game was still in doubt. I think that was pretty well into the game that they had relatively well in hand. And the Chubb injury there's no excuse for that. And if you go back and listen, I am as pro Mike McDaniel as they come. I think he's been a breath of fresh air. I think he has fixed Tua. I think he has put a winning culture in this city. I think he's done a lot of things incredibly well. But you got to call balls and strikes when you see him. And there's no excuse. And if you listen to his rationale, it's kind of changed. The first time it was, hey, players want to play, right? Like they don't want to come out of the game. They want to play. And then when he was asked again on Monday, it was, it was a quick change. Didn't really have all of the ducks in a row. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here. We didn't react fast enough. And honestly, I don't know what explanation's worse, because every single week he talks to us about protecting the players from themselves. That is his big thing. Like, I'm going to be a week late instead of a week early and bring a guy back. I'm going to protect him from himself. What is a greater protection of a player than pulling him out of a game that's a lost cause, particularly when it's your defensive MVP? I don't think we can overstate how important Bradley Chubb has been to this defense. And so, no, that decision should not be in the players' hands. I'm sorry. You have much bigger priorities than their morale at 3:50 on New Year's Eve when the wild card is 2 weeks away. Okay. That game was a lost cause. It was over and done. And they're going to have an entire week and an entire game against the Buffalo Bills to get that good feeling back. They can go chase that then, right? There, in that moment, nothing good can come about that. 3 minutes left of a 30-point game, no excuse. And then the kind of rationale, it was a quick change and we were scrambling. I'm sorry. You just saw your quarterback get rocked, okay? You just saw your quarterback get rocked, hurt his shoulder, go to the tent. Shouldn't that have been the biggest red flag of them all that, hey, what am I doing here? So he should have better off take a delay a game, right? Take a delay a game, say, here's your 5 yards, Baltimore Ravens. You want to score another touchdown? Feel free. I'm going to make sure that the best interests of my organization long-term are protected here. And he didn't do it. I think that was his biggest coaching failure that we have seen in the 2 years in Miami. You can talk about the Bills game not being able to get the play in. Okay, it was a backup quarterback on the road, a lot of moving parts. Wasn't acceptable, but wasn't this. This has the real potential to hurt this team in a way that no other decision he has made will. And again, it's crappy luck, okay? And you can say, well, was there something already going on in his knee that was just, the straw that broke the camel's back? Don't know. But you know what? I do know one thing. If he's sitting on the bench, he's available for the Bills game, right? If he's sitting on the bench, at least if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in a competitive game. I'm sure I wrote this. I'm sure it's haunted him this week. I'm sure that, he's an introspective guy. He microanalyzes absolutely every decision he makes. I wonder if what Bradley Chubb thinks today, what Vic Fangio thinks today. Was Vic screaming in his ear, get these guys out off the field? Was he doing that? Because he should have been. What's the locker room thinking today, right? What's he thinking today? I know, I'm not sure if you watched Hard Knocks last night, but he said this can basically the two of this can crush us or this can make us stronger. I don't know how it's going to make them stronger. I don't, because there are now, X's and O's things that they simply can't overcome. And, Emmanuel Ogbah, I don't understand how he was a healthy scratch in week 17. He's going to go from a healthy scratch to their number one pass rusher. With all due respect, Andrew Van Ginkel. Those are going to be your two pass rushers. And I don't know if you saw much of Melvin Ingram in that game, he looked like a guy that was on the street a month ago, right? He looked like a guy that probably shouldn't be in the league anymore. So yeah, you can't overstate it. And the only way they're going to be able to paper this over is if the offense is so good that it doesn't matter. That's the only way that through this, because if the offense plays like it did against Baltimore, which wasn't terrible, by the way. I mean, they still scored 19 points against the best defense in the National Football League. You're at 19 at midway through the third quarter or whatever it was. That should be a competitive game because you think you have this number one defense. It should be at worst like a 27-19 game, right? And you still have a chance to go and maybe win the game in the fourth quarter. But now what we've seen out of that defense, there's not going to be any Xavier Howard this week. So you're talking about Eli Apple and Kader Kohu and who else? Nick Needham. And a lot of these guys that got absolutely torched by the Baltimore Ravens and torched by the Buffalo Bills the first time around are going to be asked to do the same thing. So it's got to be the offense, right? It has to be Tua Tagovailoa. It has to be Tyreek Hill. And I'm sorry, I've taken up way too much of your time here on this rant, but just one more thing, because this is stream of consciousness. What the hell's happened to Tyreek Hill in big games? You go look at their 5 losses. 5 of the 6 worst games of the year are those 5 losses. The only win was in New England, whatever that was, week 2, where it was a running game. It wasn't a passing game for the Dolphins. It was a running game. The other 5 bad games he's had have all been losses. And it's not just like Tua is missing him. He's getting the ball thrown to him and he's dropping touchdowns. And where are the explosive plays? Where are the home runs that this offense is predicated on? Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, Tua Tagovailoa have to be the way forward for this team. It's the only chance they have. And if they don't show up this week, it's going to be one and done, man. I mean, maybe they can go give a fight in Kansas City. I don't love their chances there. And
I feel a lot better if that game's in Miami.
Yes.
But for that to happen, they got to get the 2 seed and move on. Yeah.
Right. And I definitely don't love their chances going back to Baltimore again. Like the best case scenario for the Dolphins is to win this week and to have enough help, which if you're counting on the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Pittsburgh Steelers to bail out your season, that's a bad place to live, right? That's kind of where they are right now, right? That's who they're counting on to bail out their season. Because unless they don't, they're going to get the Bills again, right? And beating the Bills twice in 6, 7, or 8 days, tall task. And then your reward for doing that is hosting the Chiefs and going to the Ravens. That's the best case. Like it's bad.
No, hold on. The best case scenario is getting the Steelers right in the first round because you get the Steelers and Jaguars to win. You get Kansas City at home, and then you hope that Cleveland knocked off Baltimore in a divisional round, or whoever the 4 seed is. But I'm just assuming in my head Cleveland's going to beat whoever the AFC South puts out there. You hope they beat Baltimore.
Do you have much confidence they can beat the Cleveland Browns at this point?
I'll take my chances over Baltimore, certainly, and a home game versus going to Baltimore. But I mean, so that's the ideal scenario. A lot of help involved there.
An incredible amount of help. Look, I mean, Baltimore's the best team in the National Football League. They're going to be rested when they play in the divisional round. I fully expect if the Dolphins get to the Super Bowl, it's going to be going back to Baltimore and winning at a place where they just lost by 5 touchdowns.
Yep. Well, okay. You threw a lot out there. So Tyreek, let's talk about Tyreek real quick. Watching Hard Knocks yesterday, did he not look gimpy leaving that field?
Oh yeah.
Like how much is the ankle bothering him that we don't know? No excuse for the drops, obviously, but for the lack of explosive plays from him. Could certainly we don't know how bad the ankle is, but he did not look great leaving the field.
No, absolutely right. And he is gutted through, I'm sure, something that you and I couldn't do because we're soft and he is not.
I should be laying in bed probably.
Yeah.
That's for real.
All that being said, he made some plays last week, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, you're wide open. I don't care if you're dragging your leg behind you. You got to make that catch. And it changed the game, right? I mean, they would have been, again, we don't know exactly what would have happened, but when Tua would have thrown that pick, we don't even know if he would have been throwing in that situation. They would have been at worst up, 17-14 then? Is that what it would have been?
Yep.
At worst, they would have been up 17-14. Maybe they just try to run at the half. Maybe they go a little bit more conservative. Certainly, he's not pressing and forcing throws up 17-14. The second half could look a little bit different. Again, Baltimore was by far the better team on Sunday. But yeah, sure, maybe an ankle does still hurt him. You still got to make basic catches, and that was a basic catch.
Yeah, no, for sure. Certainly the run game didn't look any worse with Mostert sitting out. So I think that's a positive. And I presume we'll have Raheem Mostert back on the field for week 18. It would be my guess. It seems like he was close, right?
Maybe Robert Hunt. And the Bills pass rush is nothing compared to Baltimore's. So you're not going to get your quarterback drilled like he got drilled by the Ravens. That'll be helpful.
What you're going to need is a run game. So you're going to have to, if you're still without Waddle and you have a Tyreek Hill that's playing on one bad ankle, you're going to need that support and not making Tua have to make, all the plays. Take some of the pressure off him, which we saw in Baltimore. The running game worked, and hopefully,
I will say this: I wouldn't be surprised if Waddle plays this week. I mean, really? we're taping this Wednesday morning, so I don't have any inside information on this. We haven't, but look, it's the most important game of the year, and he's going to play through pain. I mean, it's kind of similar to what Tyreek went through. They're very similar injuries. I don't think he's going to be close to 100%, but it would not at all surprise me that he plays this week. I think anybody who can contribute anything will be up, simply because they know that if they're the 6th seed, the Super Bowl is. If they limp into the playoffs with 2 straight losses as a 6th seed with the road that they would have to get through, you're looking at 2024. I mean, you are. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, but you are. 2 seeds not a piece of cake either, unless the Bills, get unlucky and get bounced. But I like their chances a lot more as the 2 seed than I do the 6. And they have done everything in their power to keep these guys as healthy as possible for this moment. This is the moment. Like there is. Like, what are you saving them for Kansas City? Is that what you're doing? No, I think if you're able to contribute anything, you're going to be up this week.
So let me ask you a question. If the Dolphins fail to win the AFC East, right, after having a 3-game lead entering week 14, how big of a collapse is this from a historical perspective for the Dolphins? And kind of, what does it mean moving forward then? I mean, I presume, even though I had some Dolphin fans DMing me on Twitter saying that the coach should be, on the hot seat, which I know is laughable. But what changes are you looking at? I mean, because that would be a large collapse, right? You're in a matter of 5 weeks giving up a 3-game lead in a division that should have been wrapped up, and doing so with the loss to the Titans being kind of the start of this down period.
Yeah, and that's the elephant in the room. Like, none of this should matter. Not, like they shouldn't be playing I wrote this. They shouldn't be playing a single soul on Sunday. Like everyone should be getting their bye week this week, and it's crazy because you look at the math, and if the Dolphins had beaten the Titans, they would have incentive for the Bills to win this week, because the Bills would be the 6th seed. You wouldn't see them until the AFC Championship game. They would never admit that, but their path would be far easier. If they were, what are they now? 11-5. They were 12-4 going into this game, and they lost to become 12-5. Their Super Bowl path is infinitely easier than if they would win this week. Like this would be a completely meaningless game from a win standpoint, and a hugely significant game from a rest and loss standpoint. So let's just put that aside. This is going to sound like a loser's kind of approach, but kind of depends on how they play. Like if they go out there and their offense is spectacular and they lose in a shootout, they lose 49-48 or whatever, and their defense I mean, we don't know. Jerome Baker might be back. I would assume Baker's. We're talking about every able-bodied player. They weren't even going to put him on IR until they had to because they needed the roster spot. So that suggests to me that he is going to play this week. I would expect Robert Hunt to play as well. But a defense that will still be without Xavier Howard, Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb, the Bills are going to score some points. So if it's a competitive game and the team just got absolutely crushed by injuries, I think it's a different story than if they just get housed this week. If they lose like 35-10 at home to the Bills and then they go to Arrowhead and get waxed, I don't think this time next year it's not out of the question that the Dolphins have questions at head coach. I mean, I could see a scenario. I mean, here's the question. What do they do if that's the scenario? If Tua goes bad game to end the season, week 17, week 18, wild card weekend, they lose all three of those games. They're one and done again in the postseason. What's the rationale to give that guy $50 million a year? I mean, this is what franchise quarterbacks do. He has his offense. His offense is going to be there this week. It might not be at 100%, but no one's at 100% this time of the year. You're going to have Tyreek. You're going to have Mostert, almost certainly. Likely going to have Waddle in my mind. We'll see how this week goes. Going to have as healthy of an offensive line as you're going to get at this point in the season if they get Robert Hunt back. So that means you're going to have three of your starters and you're going to have two solid backups. I mean, they ran the ball great last week. They've run the ball great 2 of the last 3 weeks with Eichenberg as their center. Okay. I don't know, like that. This is it for Tua. Like, this is everything he's ever asked for. A chance to go out and win the division at home, to be the 2 seed. I mean, it's doom and gloom because they got the bleep kicked out of them last week, right? And they lost.
And also because it's a national TV Sunday night game and the Dolphins in prime time. From a fan perspective, it hasn't gone well typically. So that's the other reason it's doom and gloom. It's like, another prime time game. I talked to fans who were hoping the game stayed at 1:00 or, got put at 1:00 just to avoid the whole, that fear of having to watch them on prime time now. And they just seem to kind of crap the bed when they are put on the national spotlight.
Do you think that's causation or correlation? I mean, do you think
it's not? It's just part of the narrative, the doom and gloom narrative around the team from the media and from fans. That's not helping because of that situation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that it has anything to do with what time you couldn't have had more of a national showcase game than Dolphins Cowboys. Okay. They won that game with a game-winning drive. It was pitch dark at Hard Rock Stadium. Okay. It was like midnight there, and the entire nation was watching that game. Okay, maybe 3 pockets. So is that what you're telling me, that the 3 or 4 markets that didn't have the game at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve, that's the reason they won?
Listen, fans aren't rational, okay?
No, I think it's you play better teams in prime time. And
yeah, right. Except for the Titans.
Yeah. Well, again, and that was 3 minutes. Well, I went back and looked. It wasn't even 3 minutes. It was like 51 seconds. Their entire season unraveled in, like, no joke, like 90 seconds. Their 2 touchdowns were 51 seconds apart. Okay? So what they did was, in the course of 90 to 120 seconds, let the Titans go down the field, go 3 and out, and go down the field again. That's it. It blows my mind that those 120 seconds, 100 and whatever it is, seconds of game time is why we're here. Totally nuts. Totally nuts.
And if the Dolphins drop this game on Sunday, when you look back at the season, that is obviously the watershed moment. That's it. That Titans game that I was with David watching together, watching him freak out more than I was. That's really what the season came down to. So you mentioned the offense, and this game I think is also going to tell me a lot about McDaniels' ability to adapt. I went back and looked at my notes from the drubbing of the Bills beating the Dolphins in the first week, and there was a lot here. Tyreek Hill said after the game about the Bills using a lot of cover two, and there was seemingly someone always over the top, and he suggested that running the ball could have opened things up more. On the day after the game, that Monday, McDaniel admitted he abandoned the run too quickly. So I wonder now heading into this game, is he going to learn from that? Is he going to commit to the run more? Are they going to take more, of the underneath throws? Part of that's on Tua, right? Instead of always trying to look down the field, take what's there, because there should be plays to be made, even if they're not the large chunk plays.
Will it matter if the Bills are scoring on every possession? I mean, that's the thing, is that, like, yeah, they abandoned the run. That's great. You weren't stopping Buffalo. You had to score. I mean, that's the thing, is that when your offense has to score every single drive, you're going to press. And I think that's kind of what happened in the Baltimore game too, is that, like, you just couldn't get any stops. And they had one fumble and then they gave it away like immediately thereafter. Isn't that right in Baltimore? Yeah. It was all, the second half was kind of a blur. Was it back-to-back plays that there were turnovers?
I don't think it was back-to-back. Admittedly, I was, by that time, I was only half paying attention by that point in how the game was unfolding.
Yeah, I mean, so certainly run the ball, shorten the game. You do not want to get into a track meet with the Bills. You do not. But, if the game dictates, hey, you're down 14, you're going to throw the football. I mean, you are. You can run the ball some to mix it up, but it's not like you're going to you don't want a 12-play, 84-yard drive. It takes 7 minutes off the clock. You got to throw the ball. So, yes, run early 100%. Stay ahead of I don't want to see the Dolphins fall behind the Bills, because then you're going to have it's going to be ugly. What they need is they need a great first quarter. And how many of these teams have they just come out and taken it to in the first quarter? That these really good teams, certainly not Kansas City, certainly not Buffalo, certainly not Baltimore, certainly not Philadelphia.
Well, Baltimore, they did put up 10 points on the Ravens in the first quarter, which is the most they gave up all year in the first quarter.
Okay.
The problem is the defense wasn't doing anything.
They were down 14-10, though, weren't they? I mean, 10-7 and then 14-10, and 14-13, and then what was it, after 14-13 they scored? Was it
21-13, and then that's when the Tua interception happened.
Yeah, and they scored what would it have been, 35 of the next 41 points or something?
Yeah, that's when they went for it on 4th and 7, showing no respect at all. And the first Isaiah Likely touchdown to make it 28-13, and that was kind of it.
Do we have a concern beyond cornerback about their ability to cover the pass?
Yeah, I mean, so Holland did not look like himself. Admittedly, he's going to be rusty. He missed a month basically, so he hasn't played since the Black Friday game. He didn't look like the player that we saw earlier in the season. So maybe, hopefully, 1 week of additional, conditioning and practice.
He's got a radio spot down here in 560 every week, and he admitted that he wasn't what he should have been in that game. So you're onto something there.
Yeah. And then, like I said, the linebackers in coverage. Yeah, they picked on Duke Riley last week. Even if Baker's back, I don't feel any better. And the Bills have historically, they've done that.
You should feel better.
Well, no, I don't feel better in coverage.
You should.
The linebackers covering James Cook, that's going to be a story on Sunday.
Okay, fair. But Jerome Baker is way better of a player than Duke Riley is. I mean, he might not make the splash plays that you like, but go and look at the advanced stats. Like, he is way better in coverage than Duke Riley is. Like, not even close. And I was looking at the stats before they updated it from Sunday, which are just going to be egregious. I'm gonna call up right now the Dolphins advanced stats to make you feel a little bit better, because they are. He is much better. Let's see. I am going right now to Pro Football Reference. But yeah, I agree that it's not ideal. But
let me ask: would you shadow Diggs with Jalen Ramsey? I would. It's not even a question in my mind. They should have did that with. Well, they did do it with Garrett Wilson, and they should have did it with CeeDee Lamb. I know they made some other adjustments after Lamb had a very strong, start to the game. But are you going to let Ramsey, assuming Howard is out, follow Diggs around?
You got to, assuming they still fear Diggs, which is a question because Diggs has had a terrible season by his standards.
Well, yeah, but who else do you fear then? I mean, that's always that's the Bills' thing. Without Diggs, their receiving corps is very mediocre. It's an average group beyond Diggs.
All right, are you ready for these stats? Duke Riley in coverage. Duke Riley in coverage is 16-21. That's 76.2% completions against for 155 yards. Yards per completion 9.7, yards per attempt 7.4, 1 touchdown, a pass rating of 112. Jerome Baker, higher completion percentage, but far less yards per completion. Okay, so he makes the tackles. He doesn't get beat deep. Baker's got a higher completion percentage against, but the yards per completion is just 8.9, a yard less than Riley. Similar yards per target, 1 touchdown, but a passer rating of 86. So 86
it ain't
to
that much better. Okay, it's not. I mean,
26 points in passer rating. It's substantial.
Yeah, but a passer rating can swing by a touchdown or two.
Yeah, I mean, he also has Jerome also has 2 interceptions.
Right. Okay.
And Duke Riley has none.
Right. The Duke Riley hasn't been in position to. I'll give Baker credit there. He will find himself in position.
Yeah, he is better in coverage than Duke is. All right, maybe it's not. He might not be the best coverage linebacker, but I mean, there's a reason they got Duke Riley for a song in free agency. I mean, he's a special teams player that's try hard, and if he can give you 10, 15 targeted snaps on defense a game, you're happy. He's, you go and watch the Hard Knocks, and he's trying to be the leader of that defense. That's just not his role.
No, certainly. So, okay, tell me how the Dolphins can then keep the Bills from scoring into the 30s. If you were writing the game script for them.
Well, I mean, the game script is you get Josh Allen to do Josh Allen things, right? I mean, that's it. You turn him over. That's been the key to beating the Bills this year is that you make him make dumb mistakes. You confuse him. You give him looks that he's not ready for. I honestly think this is their pressure game, and people have absolutely smoked the DC last year for that playoff game for playing a lot of cover zero. What other option do they have? Like, seriously, what other Josh Border? That was a ball game because they brought pressure. I mean, I know the score was if they had any offense at all in that game, they would have won, and it would have been because they confused the hell out of Josh Allen and made him throw interceptions. I think that's the great equalizer is that like he can hand you a game, and he has handed bad teams games. Like they lost to the Jets and lost to the Patriots this year. Okay, they've lost bad games.
And their last 2 weeks, by the way, 2-point win against a bad Chargers team and a 6-point win against a bad Patriots team.
A horrendously bad Patriots team.
Right. So it's not like they crushed the Cowboys, but other than that, they have not, been some world beater. They're just doing enough to win.
They've had a soft schedule. That's helped. But Josh Allen owns the Dolphins. I mean, that's the thing is that it's.
Yep.
It's the one team that doesn't matter how bad he's playing. Even that guy stunk early in his career, he knew how to beat the Dolphins. So that's the only way they win. What do they win? They won like 21-19, didn't they? The Dolphins did last year.
Yep.
If you can get to that game somehow, I mean that's it. That's the golden tuna right there. But here's I'm trying to remember it. It was X. And who was the other corner in that game? Was it Cater? Because Brandon Jones gave them nothing last year. So it was probably Cater. Who do other?
My memory is shot. Yeah, I think it was.
Nick was in that game because he hadn't gotten hurt yet. So you're basically saying similar personnel except for pass rush, which is, they're going to have to blitz, right? They're going to have to blitz.
Yeah.
Their
Vic's going to have to come up with something. You can't just sit back there and let Allen pick you apart. You also can't overcommit with blitzing and you don't get to him and then he's off and running. And that's the other thing. Running quarterbacks continue to, I mean, they give every defense, trouble, but historically,
what did Lamar do out of the pocket though? He didn't really do anything out of the pocket in that game.
He didn't need to. When you have guys running wide open in the secondary.
Right. Yeah, so I don't think that was a running quarterback failure. It was just their DBs had no bleeping clue what they were doing failure. And they couldn't get any pressure on the guy. Like, okay, so by the time people listen to this, we'll know the answer, but why haven't the Dolphins kicked the tires on a Frank Clark, or why haven't they signed an Ndamukong Suh? Like, this is break glass in case of emergency. I mean, there's no way that Ndamukong Suh or Frank Clark aren't better than what Melvin Ingram is giving them right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get pass rush out of Agba. He's not great against the run. Bring Suh in to set the edge. Here's your job. 30 plays a game, you set the edge. Okay? And if you can get us any negative plays, awesome. But just don't let Josh Allen get out of contain. Don't let these running backs bounce it outside. I mean, maybe he wants money that they're not willing to pay, but
yeah, well, that's the other thing about Frank Clark. I would assume it's a money thing.
I mean, give him $1 million to play one game. Like, seriously, give him $1 million to play one game, and then whatever you get in the playoffs, it's gravy. If we go to the Super Bowl, we'll throw another $1 million in incentives in there.
Yeah,
like I don't get it. And we're now Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Roster moves have been made by now. Like,
yep.
It to me, it's they must have. They obviously have a reason. I'll ask McDaniel when we see him in a couple hours. But like Frank Clark and Ndamukong Suh, two proven players that have won Super Bowls that can help the defensive front that is absolutely ravaged by injuries. Why is Emmanuel Ogbah, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Melvin Ingram a better combination than that? Don't know.
I know. That's a really good question. I've seen floated around. Did you see someone actually suggested Cameron Wake?
Oh, they suggested it, and I absolutely dunked on them because the last time I saw Cam Wake, he was 190 pounds, and that's not even a joke. Like, if there's a guy,
190-pound Cam Wake,
he is slim. He is. I mean, maybe he's 200, maybe, but he's not that. He's 4 inches taller than me, and maybe 30 pounds heavier, maybe. So
it's a guy who has no intention of coming back.
When he was done, he was done. He's also 41 years old.
Yeah.
Let's put that to bed. But there are able-bodied players out there. And again, I haven't checked my phone. Maybe Ndamukong Suh is just signed, but I'm doubting it. I think we would have gotten some sort of notification if that was the case.
Yeah, no. And there's certainly guys out there available who would probably give you better snaps than a Melvin Ingram and a Cameron Good, right? Because that's what they're going to be looking at beyond Van Ginkel and Ogbah. And, I mean, do you think they get creative? Is Brandon Jones going to get on there as an outside linebacker pass rusher at times, being on the field with Elliott and
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe that's the answer. They just play a lot of dime.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly that will give them better pass coverage. It definitely makes you susceptible to stopping the run. Like, you need.
Yeah. And James Cook has been he's had no trouble recently on the ground. So that's going to be. I mean, it's funny. What concerns you more? Because I've gone back and forth on this. Is it Allen beating you with the pass, or are you worried about stopping the run now? Having lost Bradley Chubb, who was a very good player at setting the edge.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what they have.
The answer is probably both, right? I think both of them scare me.
I mean, I still think they can be solid against the run, and I think Ogbah can give them enough pass rush. They still have Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer, and those guys get pressure up the middle all the time. It doesn't have to be from the edge. It's not like there's not going to be any pass rush. It just surprises me that they didn't add another body, and I'll be fascinated to see what we hear out of McDaniel today. And it's entirely possible that they're just holding off the announcement till practice, but we'll see. Speaking of which, I got to go to practice. Can we wrap this up?
Before we get out of here, let's run through real quick the playoff scenarios, just so everyone's on the same page. Dolphins win, Steelers and Jaguars both win, Dolphins versus Steelers, okay? Dolphins win, and the Steelers and Jaguars both lose. The Dolphins would get the 2 seed. The Bills would get the 6 seed in that scenario. So they would avoid the Dolphins, and then the Dolphins would play the Steelers if the Broncos beat the Raiders, and they play the Jaguars if the Raiders beat the Broncos. So people are wondering how they can play the Jaguars because that's been floated out there as like 2 of the 16 possibilities. That would be how. It would be a Steelers and Jaguars loss, Dolphins win, and the Raiders beat the Broncos. Tiebreaker related, it would be Dolphins Jaguars.
I hope you wrote this down because I did not.
I have it written down. I'm reading it off what I wrote down. So I want to pose one more question to you. Up to you. Would you rather be the 2 seed and face the Bills again, or be the 6 seed and go to Kansas City for the wild card weekend?
And here's what's crazy. The 6 seed would give you a better chance of reaching the divisional round and finally winning a playoff game. The 2 seed would give you a better chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, would a playoff win be enough to make this a successful year for you?
No. I would have said yes in the preseason because we haven't seen one in 23 years. But no. At this point, from where we were, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I think you got to get to the AFC title game for this to be considered a successful season at this point.
Yeah.
The AFC isn't good this year. So if there was ever a year to get there, it's this year.
Honestly, it's sneaky good at this point, though. Because, look, it's good in ways that the division champions might stink, but the wild card's got some teeth, man. It does. The Bills and the Browns. I think
the Bills might not even get in. I mean, listen, the Dolphins beat the Bills. Okay, fine. They're underdog. They're 3-point underdogs. Okay. The Steelers beating the Ravens, the Steelers are favored because Vegas is expecting the Ravens to sit their starters. And the Jaguars beating the Titans. It's very conceivable that the Bills are coming to Hard Rock Stadium playing for their playoff lives because on Saturday, the Steelers won. Sunday at 1 o'clock, the Jaguars won. And now the Bills are dangerous. They're probably more dangerous than that, right? And now back against the wall, they're going to be out if they lose that
game. New York Times does all their sims. They give a 5% chance of the Bills missing the playoffs.
I don't think they're factoring in the fact that the Ravens are probably not playing a lot of their players. I mean, that's the big one, right? Saturday, 4:30. And again, short week now for the Ravens. So
if the Steelers win that game, you are the biggest Jacksonville Jaguars fan.
Yes. Luckily, they're playing the Titans. And Trevor Lawrence will likely be back. He could be back.
I just have zero confidence in either of those teams to do what you need them to do. Like, they might one win and one lose, so just to screw you.
And doing that, the Bills get in. If that happens, the Bills are clinching a playoff spot, and then they're
before they even play.
What's that?
Yeah, if that happens, the Bills are in before the game, before the 8:30 on Sunday.
Yep.
All right, I got to roll.
Yep. Prediction. Give me your 10-second prediction. What's going to happen?
You're not going to like this prediction. I think the Bills win. I think the Dolphins just don't have enough on defense to stop, and Josh Allen owns them. I would love to be wrong because I don't want to go to Kansas City, but I see it more likely it's a multi-score Bills win than a Dolphins win.
Okay,
like I could see it being like 31-20. Bills.
Yeah, I'm the most pessimistic Dolphin fan probably, or I'm one of them. The Dolphins are going to win. They're going to win. I'm not saying it's a blowout. They're going to win, and it won't come down to the last drive. It'll be some kind of fourth. It'll be close in the fourth quarter. I think they will end the game kneeling at the clock, and we're not going to be sweating as the Bills drive down the field needing a touchdown or something like that. That's what I think happens. Why? Because it makes no sense. That's why. That's because I think everyone is now expecting the Bills to win. And when that happens, it tends to go the other way. The fact that it's at Hard Rock also makes me more comfortable. In Buffalo, the fact that they're home, Dolphins are 12-2 with Tua and McDaniel together at home. And one of those losses, Tua was concussed for a half against the Packers. So, yeah, I think they get it done. Probably a lower scoring game than a higher scoring game. I think it has to be. I think Dolphins are going to try to control the ball. That's that's, I think, the way to do it, because the defense is going to be, they're undermanned. They're undermanned now.
Yeah. Just one quick thing. Vegas has a pretty good feel for this team over the last 2 years. When they're favorites, they're something like 17-5, and when they're underdogs, they're like 3-11.
It'll be 4-11.
How's that rain? How's a rainbow of crap that I just dumped on your head?
It's, I'm used to it. I'm usually the one thinking, the worst. And for some reason, I just have a feeling.
All right.
I think they're going to go. It wouldn't surprise me then if they go and lay an egg in the wild card round. That's a whole separate situation. But I think Sunday night they get it done.
Should be fun. I mean, honestly, it's like what you asked for, right?
Yeah.
Have the entire nation watching as you can go for one of your biggest goals. Can't ask for anything more than that.
The very last game of the regular season. I mean, yeah, it's certainly, the script is fun. It'll be much more fun if the Dolphins win. But
yeah,
certainly come back here next week to the Miami Dolphins podcast, where we will either be celebrating or, kind of picking up the pieces and preparing for a wild card round where the Dolphins are on the road. If you haven't started, subscribing to the podcast, please do, because, we're in 2024 now. We've been doing this for 8 months. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, and we will see you back here next week on the Pro Football Network Miami Dolphins podcast.